Are you ready to boss up and start that business? You're listening to Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. My name is Beatriz Rivera, and this show is my empowerment tool and community builder. My mission is to help queer and WOC, that's queer and women of color, start their businesses with accountability, clarity, and most of all, confidence. On this podcast, I go over the question, can entrepreneurship help us reach our potential? I talk about my hardships, my wins, and you'll even hear how other queer and women of color have navigated and come to own their entrepreneur identity. I'm a social worker turned entrepreneur coach, and as such, of course, I'm going to give you tips, inspiration, and maybe even some laughs to help you not just start, but transform into that boss. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. My name is Beatriz. I am the founder of Be a Boss Coaching, entrepreneur and business coach for women of color, BIPOC, and queer entrepreneurs who want to walk along their journey like a boss. I am so excited for you to hear Claudia Zimmermann's story. You'll get to know more about her in this episode. I cannot even begin to tell you how courageous and brave this woman is. She is incredible, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to connect with her and really share in her story and her message. I do want to make a quick note that there are mentions of suicidal thoughts and behaviors in this episode. So if you need to, please take care and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. With that being said, I hope that you enjoy this discussion. I hope that you take so much away. And if you're here, thank you so much for listening. I want to take a quick moment to remind you to, if you're new to this podcast and you enjoy this podcast so far, please come on over to Instagram, tag us, and let us know that you are a listener. You can also leave a review or a rating on Google, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you listen. And it would really help out this podcast so much. So thank you for your support. Without further ado, please enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. Today, I have Claudia Zimmermann. I'm excited to share her story and to talk about her business, her coaching business. I'm going to have you, Claudia, introduce yourself and your business, and we'll take it from there.
Well, hi, Ben. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited being in your podcast and connecting with you and sharing my message and my mission with people. Like you said, my name is Claudia Zimmermann, and I am an empowerment and personal freedom coach. And I work mostly with people who are feeling like stuck in their lives and they know that they need to make changes. They're craving for changes. They're not happy with where they are. And I help them reconnect to what is truly true for them and take action to make those changes so they can live more fulfilled and happy and joyful lives.
Amazing. And can you tell me the name of your business?
Yes, it's my name. So Claudia Z, Zimmermann. So Claudia Z Coaching. So that's the name of my business.
Awesome. So Claudia Z Coaching, coach.
Yes.
Empowerment and personal freedom. I have so many questions about empowerment and personal freedom. Can you say more about what empowerment and personal freedom means to you?
I love that you asked that question. So personal freedom to me, I feel like we all come into this world as free beings. And then as we're growing up, we get conditioned by society, by our family, school, society, the media, everything into who and what we should be and who and what we should not be. And that starts to limit our freedom. In my personal experience and in my own journey, I realized that those things at some point stopped serving me. Trying to live by other people's rules and about what others were telling me my life should look like by a certain age or things like that were actually not, I wasn't feeling happy with those choices that I was making that were supposedly to work for most people. They were not working for me. And I believe it's not working
Yeah.
for many people nowadays. And so for me, is that ability to reconnect to who you truly are and what is true for you and start making choices from that place. That's
Mm.
where the true freedom lies. And the empowerment
Yeah.
piece is that you can only make those choices and like that once you make that connection you can only make those choices from a place of feeling empowered and really believing in yourself, believing in your choices, believing in your truth, and being willing to disappoint others in the journey, because if you don't, at the end of the day, from my experience and from working with clients, at the end of the day when we try to make all other people happy, the one person that gets disappointed is ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. I think that most folks that I know in within coaching and the space of wanting to better ourselves and then find new versions and strive for better versions of ourselves. It's a question that I think comes on at a specific moments of your life. And I'm wondering for you, when in your life or what moments in your life you started asking yourself those questions around what does it
Yeah.
look like for me to live a life that is true to me? Like, when did you even start having those questions? Because I feel like those are deep questions, right? That we don't think about day. And I think those are deep questions that come to us after a few experiences and life experiences. So I am curious when you felt that that was a question you were asking yourself.
That's a great question. I, like you said, I feel like I've asked myself this question at different stages in my life for different circumstances. So for one, when I finished college, I'm from Argentina, and when I was in college, and I don't know, I always had a feeling that at some point I was going to leave my hometown and I wasn't sure where I was going to go. Or most of my friends and the people that I knew, I come from a kind of a small town. It has grown, but it was small, kind of small town at the time. And most people
Mhm.
didn't leave their hometown. They grow up there, they go to school there, they get a job, they start their families, and they die in the same place. And for some reason that
Mhm.
didn't resonate with me. So I had
Yeah.
I was gonna leave, and I did. I graduated from college, and I also knew that I wasn't gonna leave until one of my grandparents were alive, my maternal grandparents, because I was really close to them. And so
Mhm.
I actually left my hometown at the end of the year after my when my grandma passed away. First my grandfather and I left. So I felt like I that idea of finishing college, getting married, having kids and all of that, it wasn't the time for me to do that. I figured I love traveling and I wanted to go and explore other places. And so I found the opportunity to come here to the US to do an internship, and I came and everything, and it was great. So I feel like that was the first time what society is showing me doesn't fulfill me, and I want to find like a separate
Yeah.
path. And I came to the US and then moved to San Francisco, and I had great time in San Francisco. And I was working in the wine industry, and I did work in the wine industry in compliance for many years. I have a degree in like a background in business, so that's what I was doing. And after years, like about 10 years of working in the wine industry, I started questioning again, okay, what am I doing with my life? Like working these 9 to 5 jobs. Who am I helping? I'm helping to me. Like, and to summarize it, I was like helping wineries make money, helping people get drunk. It's not literally what I was
Mhm.
doing, but it didn't really.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how I
Yeah.
can sum it up. And I was like, is this what I want to do with my life? That doesn't sound that great. And so that was the second time when this question came, like one of the biggest, like major times when this question came up. And so I started like, what is it that I truly want to do? And I wanted to work fewer hours and I wanted to have more freedom to explore and create and do my own thing and reflect. I feel like a lot of something that people used to do before when they had more time was like just like ponder, question, or wonder, and I reflect. And
Mhm.
I love reading, and I love just like thinking. And when I was working that
Mhm.
9 to 5, and like then doing everything I had to do, I have no time for that. And I also felt like
Mhm.
I am not helping other people. That wasn't what's going to be my impact at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's the second time when that came up, and that helped me, that led me to start making different choices. I actually became a personal trainer. I moved to Maui, and where I always wanted to live on an island, and I did, and I had a great time there. Became a personal trainer
Yeah.
because I've always loved wellness and fitness and health. That was all I read at the time, mostly. And it's like I'm
Mhm.
reading and learning and doing all these things, and I want to share these. And so I became a personal trainer, and like I started helping people with their health and physical health, and that, and like different aspects of their like well-being. And then there have
Mm.
been other times, like, oh, like during my marriage and like making choice. Every time that these questions comes up, and what does that freedom look like to me? I can share more about my journey a little bit later. But when I didn't choose freedom and what felt right for me, I ended up with a really
Mm.
bad depression and wanted to end my life. And what got
Mhm.
me out of that was like starting to reconnect back to what felt true for me, because I was really out of alignment with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it speaks to, I think, what happens to a lot of us who go against what feels good or what feels right or what we're supposed to do. Because I definitely have had moments where I go against what I would like to pursue, even if I don't know in the moment how I'm going to pursue it or how it's going to play out. I go against it because it's easier. It's easier to do what I
Yeah.
know, and then it comes back and bites me. Yeah, because it's like you're if you're constantly going against what your intuition tells you and going towards what you think other people, like what you think society expects of you, and what maybe even your family or friends expect of you, or and if you and it's not what you truly want, it's going to start to come up in different ways. And I say that because when I started my coaching business, I wanted to do that. I instead went towards trying to get my clinical license, which is what I didn't want to do. But I thought that was going to be, that was the path that I was already on. And it's hard to realize that you're walking along a path and you realize, wait, this is not the way I want to go, and go back. It's hard to go, especially if you've traveled a long way and gotten yourself far in your career. And all of a sudden you're like, but this is not what I want. This is not how I want to live my life. And if there's past, like for me, there was past traumas that I hadn't healed from, and that kept coming up for me when I was trying to get my license. All of it, it wasn't letting me move forward. And it wasn't until I decided to undergo this therapy and healing for traumas that I had experienced years ago that I then felt, like you said, empowered to
Mm.
actually go the way that I want to go. Because now I realize I can do this. There's a lot of strength within me that allows me to go in a different way, even if I don't know what the other side has.
And thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that. And there is so much of what you're saying that resonates with me. And sure it resonates with a lot of people too, making these choices because it feels like the right thing to do. And this is the path. Everybody
Mhm.
else is following a similar path. So many people cannot be wrong, right? There has to be something right about these. And we make these choices, and at some point when it doesn't feel right, it takes a lot of courage to be able to stop and say, wait, this is not the way I want to go. And even though I've invested time and money and energy and everything, this is not the way I want to
Mhm.
keep going. And it takes a
Yeah.
lot of courage. It's very humbling too, because it's your ego. It's like your ego is going to fight that. It's like, no, this is my thing. You
Mhm.
just keep going. It's going to be fine at the end. And your ego just wants you to keep going. No, but there is a part of me that doesn't feel good with this. So it takes a lot of
Yeah.
courage and a lot of vulnerability to be able and willing to look at what are all these things that are holding you back, or that are like pushing you to stay on this path because it feels safer than dealing with all of these that we don't want to look at, like the traumas and the stories and the beliefs, and who am I trying to make happy here? And what am
Yeah.
I not? What is it that I don't really want to see? Because it takes work to work through all those things.
Mm.
And not
Yeah.
everybody is willing to do it, and it's okay. I feel like there is a time you have to be ready to do the work, because it's not easy. At least for me, it hasn't been
Yeah.
easy. This has been like years of work, and it's never ending. Once
Yeah.
you start working, like looking
Mm.
at these things, it's never ending. That's how I feel, at least. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share more about how this new path was is linked to your depression or what you were going through during that time?
yeah, definitely. I shared that I became a personal trainer, and I started to work on that field. And then at some point, because I had been in the wine industry for so many years, one of my dreams had been to actually import wine from Argentina and had a business importing wine. And at some point, I decided, after being on, I had started to work in the wellness industry, but I had the opportunity to do that, to like, maybe this is a good thing to do that now, to start a wine business. And I had met someone at the time, and all the decisions, they happened so fast that now looking back, I can see that most of those decisions were taken from a place of ego and fear, made from a place of ego,
Mhm.
fear, not from a place of being fully connected to who I want, what was important to me, and what I really wanted in my life. So I started making those
Mhm.
decisions. I created this business, I imported all this wine, I got married. All of these happened in like a lapse of 6 months. My life completely changed. And a few months later, I started to feel trapped. What am I doing? This is not right.
Mhm.
Like, the wine business is not what I truly want, my soul really wants to do. I made that decision from a place of ego again. My marriage, he was a great guy. It's not his fault, right? This is where I
True.
take responsibility and say, this is my fault, because being so fully disconnected from who I was at the time, I made those decisions. I got carried away. He's a nice guy, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't happy in the marriage and in the relationship. But this was my second marriage. And I had invested all my savings and borrowed money to start this wine business. So I couldn't afford to fail. Or that's what I felt like. All of these was like jumping off this business, and like jumping off this marriage was like failing. And I didn't want to
Mm.
fail. Nobody wants to fail, right? So in order to not fail, I kept trying to make it work. And now it's gonna be okay, and making it work, and it wasn't gonna work. I felt like, as time went by, I started to feel like I was shrinking more, and I got to a really dark place. I didn't want to do anything. I disconnected from my friends. I was like in this little bubble where I didn't want people to know what I was going through. When people ask, I didn't want to share. It sucks. So what I
Yeah.
did is, was like, I isolated, and that made it worse. So
Mm.
I started questioning everything that I had done, but not from a good place of, okay, not with curiosity, but from a place of judgment, and judging myself and feeling guilty and shaming myself, having got to the place where I got. having made this that I
Mhm.
made and everything. And so everything just kept going down until I started having suicidal thoughts and thinking like life would be so much easier for everyone else if I'm not on this planet.
Mhm.
Because I knew family who was in Argentina, they were the main ones that were suffering with me feeling this way, right? My friends who knew also, and I was
Mhm.
more concerned about my family. So it's like, if I'm here, they will suffer a little bit, but they will get over it and they, sorry, I get very emotional about this because I can't believe that I'm going to to think this. And if anyone is listening to this message and having those thoughts, please do not act on those. But it's real now when I look back and at that time, I see like how much harm, how much I would have hurt my family if I had done that. And I'm
Yeah.
glad I didn't.
Yeah.
And I thank God that, or to the universe that I didn't. Then it kept me going and things started to get better.
Yeah. I just want to say that you sharing your story on just everything that you went through and the spiraling and the feeling of just digging yourself deeper and deeper, those are moments that people experience. It's a very common and they don't share them. So I just want to commend you for your bravery and for sharing that story because it's not easy to share and say this is the choices that I made and it felt like a failure. This was a failure, right? And it just goes to show how stigmatized I think sometimes it is to one think about mental health and the whole process of mental health, especially I think within the Latina Latinx community, like mental health, even though I think there's progress towards accepting that a lot more now, I think there's still fragments of stigmatization of mental health. And I'm glad that you're talking about it and within the context of entrepreneurship because sometimes it's so hard and it's not just in our own lives that sometimes we feel like we've gone, like you said, even within a marriage, like how many people are in marriages still unhappy marriages because of the stigma of divorce and the stigma of what that brings. And but you did something so brave, like you realized this is not for me, this is not the path for me, I'm not happy. And you were aware of that and you made the necessary changes to actually look at this deeply. And maybe that was the catalyst for you trying to like really look at what really is out there and really deeply think about what you want and what you desire in your life. And that's very, and the fact that you're helping people do that now too, to figure out what they want with their lives, because that's a gift. That's a gift. So I just want to commend you for sharing that. I know it's not easy to relive those moments when you're in a very dark place. So thank you for that courage. So because this is not for me, right? Everything that you were living, it just wasn't in alignment with your heart. Now you provide coaching for others who also might be feeling that way. And that is the best type of coach that I think anyone can get who has experienced feelings that they're feeling. And I know that you do you do coaching. Is it executive coaching?
No, I
With
actually I do mental and emotional health coaching also for a company that provides those services, and so I coach their clients through that as well. But with that, there is a lot of everything because I am coaching corporate clients, so everything comes there.
Mhm.
There is no separation there. And with coaching, just the beauty of coaching, there is like pretty much no separation. Like everything, you can decide. You can say I'm not going to coach you on the. If somebody comes to me with like relationship issues or career choices, I might not, I'm not a
Mhm.
career coach, but it doesn't mean that we cannot get curious about it and start looking at those.
Yeah.
At least I don't believe in those lines because everything is related.
Yeah. And can you talk more about how you came to your coaching? Was it after your experience of trying out this business, trying out this wine industry business and coming to that point and realizing, you've put in a lot of time, you put in a lot of money. Was it right after that you decided I need something that's going to help me figure out what it is that I actually truly want?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And I'm happy to share. And I also want to add one thing in the light of like entrepreneurship. My business, my wine
Mhm.
business, it was also like something that I started by myself, right? And now seeing and it didn't go well. It was like everything that could go wrong with that business went wrong, right? And
Um,
what I can see now is that the mistake that I made was that I identified myself as the business failure. So I made the
mm,
business failure my identity. And because the business failed, I was a failure. Yeah. So
mm,
now I am much more aware of that and separating things like just because things didn't go well, it's not what is happening to me. And I always tell my clients and talk to my clients through these. It's not what is happening, it's what am I making this mean? And mostly, what am I making this mean about me? Because the
mm,
business failed. Now, does that mean failure that I don't deserve to be
mm,
alive, that I should better end my life? No. I make those two things equal, like the business failed, therefore I'm a failure and I don't deserve to be alive. That's what led me in part to, and also my marriage, that my marriage is failing. I am failing at my marriage. That means like I was a complete failure, like everything was failing, right? But it's not, it
yeah.
wasn't true. I was creating those truths for myself and believing them.
Mm,
So I wanted to add that because
yeah.
in entrepreneurship, things are gonna go well and things are gonna go bad, and we have to be careful at not identifying with ourselves, not when things are right and are great, awesome, and not make it like I'm successful and I am succeeding and I'm great because of these, and then when I'm failing, I am failing and I am a failure. Just like being very
Mm.
careful and not attaching ourselves to what's happening in the business because it's just a business.
Yeah, no, I thank you for that because I have those thoughts a lot too. And I think it's hard because when you're working on a business and you're spending your own money, you're investing your own money, you're investing your own time, it's hard to, like you said, separate yourself from it because it's like both your time and your money. And technically some people call their business like their baby, right? So it is hard to remember that just because something failed in your business or your entire business idea failed, that it's a reflection of you and who you are and like what you can do. And I think that we forget that sometimes. Like we get into our own heads and we're like, this isn't working. Like, okay, I'm not cut out for this, right? I'm not cut out for being a business owner. And you don't have to equate the failure of that to like your own personal. I forget that. So even 2 years in to this, I forget that because I think after 2 years, you're still considered a fairly new
Yeah.
business. And we have to remember most businesses don't actually start seeing profits and all of that until year 5, most businesses. And so we have to remember that this is hard. This is a really hard journey. And it shouldn't be a reflection of our capabilities and what we can do. And sometimes we forget that all we want to do is just prove to ourselves that we can do this. But
That,
business is hard.
that's where when we're making decisions from the ego, right? Like from I
Yeah.
need to prove myself and I need to prove the world that I can do it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I would encourage people that if that's why you're doing things, take a step back and really connect to why is it really that you want to do this. And if you cannot find like a reason that feels really compelling, that is like really important for you to do this, I don't want to die without having tried this, not to prove other people that I can do it, but because this is the impact that I want to make in the world, maybe this is not the business for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you say more just around, are there any challenges when you decided to start a coaching business and doing this for other people?
Definitely, yeah. And I think this relates to the previous question that you asked, and that I changed the subject. I apologize for that, but I wanted to share
No
that part.
worries. Yeah, I'm glad you did.
So once I started, like I became aware that I was so depressed and like I wanted to, something needed to change. So I started doing
Mm.
therapy and coaching and a lot of so many other things like healing modalities. Like I was wanting to try everything and anything because I didn't when I
Mm.
decided that if I'm gonna leave, this is not gonna be the way. And so when
Yeah.
I started looking at my choices and what was out of alignment and everything, I realized that the path where I was before, when I became a personal trainer and I was helping people with their health, I actually became a personal trainer and a massage therapist. And I was really enjoying that. It was like it's very rewarding to be able to help people. And so that I had
Mhm.
gone out of alignment because of the shining object of the wine industry, right? This is like more glamorous, the wine industry or whatever. And that's when my
Mm.
ego got carried away with those
Mm.
decisions. So once I realized that, I came back to the personal training and the massage. And I also realized that being a personal trainer, there was only so much that I could do to help people. Yes, I can give you like the great, like exercises and everything, but I only see you maybe 2 or 3 times a week for an hour. And then what are you doing with the rest of your day? So I went back to school to become a health coach to help people with not with their weight so much, but everything. I realized that everything that we're doing in our lives has an emotional component to it. And so the
Mm.
institute that I went to, it's not about giving you diets and everything. It's more looking into the roots of why are we making the choices that we're making. So I got my health and health coach and life coach certification. And then as I started to work with clients, and I realized that clients are coming for like their health part, but actually the part that we really need to look at is the emotional part. You know, it's not the diet. It's like, why are you eating? It's like you're stressed or you're not happy, you're not fulfilled with your choices. And that's what is causing you to make the choices that you're making with your diet. So it's not about the diet. That's why I don't really believe in diet. Like most people that
Yeah.
I know, they have never dieted in my entire life. I try to
Yeah.
make conscious choices for my body. And I know when I don't make those conscious choices that my body doesn't feel right. And that's how I know that I am not in alignment with that. And then I also give myself compassion and grace when I make those choices. Okay, maybe I'm feeling sad, maybe I'm feeling stressed, but I also know that I need to nurture my body. So why I'm a health and life coach, and that's how I started working with clients. And as I lean more into like life coaching, I was doing my own work, like through therapy and through coaching myself to see why and how did I get to the point where I was, because I don't ever want to go there again. And I also, my mom suffers from depression. So this is something that is very close to my heart. I've seen these journeys and I've seen friends go through these, and I started to get curious, like, why do people get there? And yeah, there is
Mm.
the chemical imbalances and all of that. That's a whole different subject. But I do believe that everything that is happening in our lives is rooted in the emotions and the stories that we're creating for our lives. That's my belief. And I wanted to, once I became more aware of that, it's like how, and I realized like, how do I not get there again? What choices do I need to make? What do I need to look at and make sure that I stay in alignment with that? I realized like I want to help other people, not avoid getting to the point where I wanted to end my life, because nobody, anyone ever to have to feel that way. And, and that, and the way that I saw that it's just like coming back to yourself, what is true for you. If you're feeling depressed, it's like, what are you suppressing? What are you not like saying or speaking up? What boundaries
Mhm.
are you not setting? What choices are you not making because you're afraid that you're going to disappoint someone? That's how I started with my coaching. Is for me, it's like taking people on a journey to come back to themselves. Because when you come back to yourself, that place feels safe. That place feels known, and from there, from that place, you feel empowered to make brave choices and more exceptional choices.
Yeah, yeah. I think that sometimes it's a little bit hard to get people to really think about, is this, will this help me, even if they are maybe suffering in silence? And I'm wondering, what would you say is the best like tool to help people come to that realization that this is something that could be beneficial for them?
Yeah, yes. I believe that I when I reached out for help, it was because I realized that I couldn't do it alone. That I believe that we
Mhm.
all have the answers within us. I don't know what answers are right for you. Only you know that.
Right.
However, when there's much confusion or so much pain, we cannot access that place that feels true. And then it's really hard to access those answers, right? So a coach or a
Mhm.
therapist are I feel like the best, like the thing, how I define my job as a coach is I just need to get better at asking better questions and help my clients access
Mhm.
their own answers. And
Mhm.
something that we cannot do for ourselves is like we can only get to a certain part when we try to do this work alone. And even I have coaches. I continue to do therapy and get coaching. Why?
Yeah.
Because even when I know the questions, when I'm trying to do this on myself or with myself, I'm only gonna get to when it starts being too painful or like too, I'm not sure I want to go
Yeah.
there and into that story because there's so like all the different parts of my brain that are playing out. It's like my brain is like, no, this is true. We don't need to look at that. When I'm talking to someone else, it's like, no, we do need to look at that. Let's get curious about that. Let's go to where you don't want to go alone. Yeah. So that is what,
I really like that. I like what you said. Let's go where you don't want to go alone.
yes.
Because I think that's a very good indicator, or it can be a good indicator for folks to realize that if they may not know that they might need support in an area, but they may know what area they don't want to do alone, something that they don't want to do alone. And that can be a good indicator for when you might need any sort of coaching, therapy, any sort of support. So I like that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is. To me, it is about that to get the guidance or get to help you shine a little bit of light on that path and bring curiosity and compassion because sometimes these processes, as you probably know, they hurt. They're painful. It's not like I don't show up to my coaching session and then it's all laughter. I usually cry a lot in my own sessions because we get emotional. I was like, and the more work we do is that you start accessing like deeper and deeper things. And sometimes things come up that you didn't even know were there. And these are the things that are getting in the way. So if we don't bring light to those things, they're going to continue to get in the way. I was uh, I was talking to one of actually my therapist not too long, like a few sessions ago, and she was telling me like the things that I don't know, I won't share what we were talking about, but like the thing that the conversation led to, these are the same things I tell my clients when I'm coaching clients. And this is the same thing that I would
Mhm.
tell them. Why is it so hard for me to use my own advice and apply my own advice and do this thing? And I love the way she explained this. She's like, when you are in the picture, you cannot see the whole picture. If you're in the frame of the picture, you cannot see the whole picture. You need to step out
Yeah.
to see the whole picture. And
Mm.
that's what a coach or a therapist can help you see. All the things that you can see because you are in that frame. You are in that little box. And it's really hard to step
Yes.
out alone and see all the other things or the other components that we cannot see.
I totally agree. I think even for folks who are coaches themselves, right? There's a lot of coaches. I think when there's a thought where, especially in coaching, you yourself need a coach, like you yourself need support. And I think that newer coaches may have this thought that it's okay, I don't need a coach. I
Because I
know
have all the tools,
coaching
right?
technique. Yeah, like I know the techniques, I know what questions to ask. I can do that myself. I can coach myself. And yeah, it's not the same. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure you probably have better
Well,
articulate way
yeah,
of, and you just said it.
yeah. If you can, I know I have a lot of tools to help others, but when
Yeah.
it comes to my own
Mhm.
self, it's sometimes it's really hard to use those tools on me, and that's when I need somebody to guide me through some of these processes. And also, if you
Mhm.
look at all the people who are succeeding at something, are being mentored or have coaches. All the greatest athletes have coaches.
Mhm.
The great athletes are not getting there by themselves. They spend a lot of like time being coached and working with mentors in different areas of their lives, not just on the skill that they want to develop. Like if you want to get better at playing golf, golf is a mental game, any mental game. So if you're just gonna try to get better at that skill, you're not gonna get there. If you don't work on your mental part, you're not gonna get there. So everyone who is succeeding at something has a mentor, has a coach, and go
Mhm.
look at this and find any industry that you want. People who are succeeding have found themselves people who have already done that and can help them.
Yeah, yeah. Even within, if you're a business owner, there are standards to the ways in which you do business. And sometimes you need someone else that can help you create and navigate the world of that you're trying to be successful in, whether it's business, whether it's just general, like just yourself and life. There's all these rules, and we have a perception about what those rules are. We just need someone that kind of helps us figure out, okay, does that work for me? Does that not work for me? You can't do that work alone.
Well, you're
Like,
bringing up an excellent point. So we in coaching, we say that each of us we create our own map of the world in our head, right? And we create the rules and how
mhm,
things should be and how people should behave and everything. And then we make that true. Like we truly believe that is true, but not all of those things are necessarily true. And if you're just going to play map, you're going to miss a lot of things because there are billions of people out there. And there are people who can, when talking to other people, when sharing, they can point out things that you might have missed in your map. And so the beauty, I've been like, again, like I am always like getting working with like coaches or like therapists and even like getting in group programs for my own like develop personal and business development. And I feel
yeah.
like that is like the best investment that a person can do, can make.
You're inspiring me to go get two other coaches. I have my therapist who also happens to be a coach too. But actually, I want you to see if you were able to talk about the differences between therapy and coaching. And when I know sometimes they may overlap, but if you can talk a little bit about those
Yeah.
differences.
So therapy for me, and I know there are different type of therapists out there nowadays. So not only therapy is not what it used to be. There are many different approaches that people can take to when they become therapists. But in my experience, like therapy has helped me maybe look at some things from my past and make peace with that part and look at things where I am now. We can also look at a little bit of the past and like work with the stories that I've
Mhm.
created from then. What like I was
Yeah.
saying, like I was saying at the beginning, what happened, what actually happened, what did I make this
Hmm.
mean? What did I make this mean about myself? And then how do I reframe that? And what? other like from that reframing and that new awareness, what decisions can I make going forward? So therapy for me helped me understand, for instance, a lot of like my relationship, some a family member or relationships, like past
Mhm.
relationships and things like that, and find peace with those things. And then coaching is helping me take that and reframe those stories and what choices do you want to make going forward?
I really love that distinction of past and thinking about therapy more of looking back at things from the past and healing through some of that stuff and needed healing, and coaching as looking forward, looking at what's ahead.
Yes, and with coaching, because at least in the coaching that I do, I actually call it with my friends like coaching and healing, because you can really move forward without healing whatever stories you have created from the past. So for people who have not experienced severe depression or like severe anxiety or some like big mental health issues, it might not be necessary to go to therapy, but we
Mhm.
everyone needs to take a look at the stories and their beliefs and see how they're getting in the way of me accomplishing what I want to accomplish, because we all have created stories. We're story beings. We love stories. Our brain loves stories. Our brain is always making up. Our mind is always making up stories, trying to make things or make sense of things, trying to make things fit in. And we spend our life creating stories. And when we buy into those stories, then we start getting away from the things that we truly want, or they start getting in the way of us getting what we want. So feel like therapy, like I did therapy when I was so depressed. Therapy helped me a lot because it helped me understand how
Yeah.
I got there. And then once I started to get better, I also did coaching because it's like, okay, well, now I understand, I see. Now, how do I avoid getting here again? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really do appreciate that, the distinction. And like you said, I think sometimes they overlap. I think with coaching, it overlaps a lot because of you can't really move forward without really connecting it back to things that you, like you said, made up stories about.
Yeah, because those
So
stories create emotions and they are rooted like our mind. When we believe something, when we make it true for ourselves, if we don't challenge, that's going to be ruling on our decisions, whether we're conscious or not conscious. That's the beauty of like doing this work too, is that we bring light to these things that are in our subconscious that we're not even aware that it's there, but starting to look at those
yeah.
beliefs, at those stories. And once you start looking at that, it's like, no wonder I'm making these decisions. I don't know if you've heard that a phrase that says that the thoughts create your reality, right? And
Mhm.
yes, and it's not the thoughts, it's like the actions that you take based on those thoughts that are going to create your
Mhm.
reality. So if we don't look at those thoughts, if we don't look at those beliefs, if we don't look at those stories, you're going to be consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously making choices that align with what you believe is true. And that's going to create the
Yeah.
reality. And if you are not aware of
Mm.
that, you might end up with a reality like the one I have that's up. And you can
Mm.
avoid getting there by being more aware of what you're giving power.
Yeah. Snaps to mental health and therapy and coaching. That's what we're advocating for
Yeah.
here. All right, Claudia, I do have a final question for you. Is what would you say is your way of embracing your entrepreneur identity?
Mm.
If you've ever thought about it that way.
My way of embracing my entrepreneurial identity. I I
And you can take your time answering, because I read that question is not a common question. And actually, some people haven't thought about that inflexibly. So you can take your
yeah,
time.
thank you. I love the question. I feel that I chose this path because it's in alignment with the life that I want for myself. I love freedom. It's my number one value. And this is something that I also invite people to look into that, to look at what are your values and what these values are guiding your actions and are they in alignment. So freedom is my number one value. And having my own business gives me a lot of freedom. It gives me freedom of location. It gives me freedom of my time, and it gives me a lot of freedom. Granted, it also comes with a lot of things that are challenging, but I'm willing to take on the challenge because I want the freedom. So that's one thing. And making sure that I am again, like I'm staying in alignment with my values and what is important for me. For me, it's freedom, it's contribution. So helping other people, I want to make an impact. So for me, having a job or like doing something that where I don't feel like the wine industry was very rewarding. It was great. I loved it. And I didn't feel like I was able to create the impact that I wanted to create in my life. So I feel that it is like this work, it is part of my identity, and it has to be in alignment with everything else that I want in my life and my identity. And also it cannot become my identity because I made that I've done that in the past where I thought the wine business became my identity. No, this is just the way I see it. This is just one more role that it plays a big part in my life, but it's not everything. So this role has to allow space and time for everything else I want in my life.
Thank you for sharing. And before we wrap, can you just let us know how, if people are interested in working with you, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Mostly Instagram, you will find me there. Although I am not posting 24/7 like every day or anything, but I'm there. And you can also check some of my content, and the link to my website is there. So I would say if you're interested, even in scheduling a conversation, I offer a complimentary 30 minutes call to explore where you are, what working together will look like, and we can go from there. There's no charge for that call, and pressure free. I'm not gonna try to sell you anything. You either feel like the work with me will resonate with you and will help you, or you don't, and that's totally fine with me. If it's a good fit, if it's in alignment, it would be, and if it's not, and I believe that most people who come to the call can take something away from the call, even if it's a new awareness or like at least new awareness on what they don't want or what they do want or things that they need to work on, whether that's with me or with someone
Yeah.
else. Yeah, my Instagram is Claudia Z Coaching, and same as my website, claudiazcoaching.com.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll make sure to have those links in the notes, in the show notes for the episode. So please come and follow Claudia on Instagram at Claudia C Coaching and visit her website. And like you heard it today, it's important. Coaching and therapy, very important. And I think not just for life in general, it's important for business and your entrepreneur journey and life, and just to get yourself to a place where you feel aligned. So thank you for sharing, Claudia. And I'm so glad that you shared your story.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for opening up the space for me to share this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was Claudia Zimmermann of Claudia C Coaching. I learned so much from Claudia. I'm so happy that I got connected with her and shared her story. You know, it is very difficult to share stories of vulnerability. And I just want to acknowledge the courage that Claudia showed in this episode by sharing her story around failure and depression and even getting to a place of suicidal ideation and thoughts. As a social worker, mental health advocate, it's difficult to have those conversations. It's difficult to come face to face with those emotions. And it's even more difficult to share them and to be vulnerable and to share your story. And so that is a testament to Claudia's courage and her bravery. I hope anybody out there who is feeling similarly, that you know that you have the support, and I hope that you reach out. I hope that you make the connections that you need to get to a place where you feel supported. And I'm glad that Claudia was able to tell and share her experience and her message around not doing this alone and getting the support that you need. And it goes back to the feelings that we might get as entrepreneurs and business owners when we're experiencing failure. Sometimes I think that starting a business and just life in general can have so many similar lessons and experiences that we all go through. What I love about entrepreneurship is that you learn so much about life in general. You learn so much about failure. You learn to get up. You learn to make connections. You learn to learn from your mistakes, from the decisions that you've made. And you move on and you keep going. And then you figure out a way to learn from those failures. And here are my biggest takeaways from talking with Claudia. To make personal freedom and empowered choices, we need to be willing to disappoint others. I am so glad that she said that because as a people pleaser, as a parentified child, the biggest emotional discomfort was always letting people down. I think that for a lot of children of immigrants, letting our parents down is something that we don't like to do. We don't like for them to feel disappointed. But sometimes we have to come to a point where, or a place in our lives where we are making decisions for ourselves, because then are we actually making decisions to please others and disappointing ourselves in the process? And that is it's difficult to come to that realization. And so I'm happy that she was able to share her place of from where she makes decisions and her own freedom. Number 2 is I may not know or need help or even be self-aware that I need support, but I know that I don't want to be alone. And I like that there is this distinction of not wanting to be alone and not wanting to do something alone. I think asking for help is something that we have to practice and get used to. And sometimes we don't even realize that it's something that we need to work on. But something that we can tap into is things that we don't want to do alone. And if something's starting to feel like you don't want to do this alone, like you wish you had help, you wish you had someone to guide you, you wish you had some support, that is something that you can tap into. If you're someone that maybe struggles with asking for help and struggles for reaching out when you need the support. And my third takeaway is it's not so much a takeaway, but more of a question is what stories does my brain like to create? And I'm glad that we talked about the stories that our brains like to create and how our brains love stories. We use stories all the time, right? We have this whole podcast is about stories. And we love to hear stories. We love to hear about other people's experiences. But our brain also likes to create stories for ourselves in order to make sense of what's going on around us. And sometimes those stories are not real. And I know that when I'm in a mood or when I'm feeling depressed or when I'm feeling anxiety, when I'm not sure of how to move forward or make decisions, there's a story happening in my brain about what I'm capable of, what I can do, what what is going to happen. Though and it's important that you call out those stories. Call out the stories that are keeping you back, that are not real, that you're creating in your head, and make up the stories of your resilience, of what you're going to do if something does fail. How can you bounce back? What lessons will you learn? And those are the stories to hold on to. So I want to thank Claudia for her courage, for sharing everything that she's gone through, for her message. I will put her links in the show notes. So please go and visit Claudia at claudiazcoaching.com as well as on Instagram and reach out, get the support that you need. And I hope that you continue on this journey with all the resources and tools at your disposal. You're not alone. So reach out. Thank you so much for sticking around. Again, for all the listeners, thank you so much if you've left a review. And if you haven't yet and you'd like to support this podcast, please head on over to Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, and leave a review or a rating. You may also share this episode or share this podcast with a friend, someone that you might feel may benefit from hearing about these stories or hearing about my journey, and who are starting businesses or want to do something different, want to do something brave, take risks, and get out of the path that they thought they needed to go in and create their own. That's what this podcast is for, is to give you an opportunity to see that it's possible and you're not alone. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you all again next week. Bye.